Humbleness is number one. I would say number two, if I was to pick another type of attribute that would be really great for leadership, not management, is empathy. You know, you really have to be able to put your feet in someone else's shoes for a little while and understand where they're coming from.
Welcome to the Business of Parenting podcast. Tune in as we discuss the principles of successful parenting as a business professional. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? This is Jason Harris, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Business of Parenting Podcast, aka The BOP. Today I have an amazing guest with me. I have the one, the only, the most famous guest. No, I'm just kidding. See, it's famous. It's totally famous. I have the amazing Fred Lennartz with me. What's up, Fred? How you doing?
What's going on, my friends? How are you, man? What's going on, Jason? Thanks for having me.
It's like a morning. That's a morning intro if I've ever done one. I'm like, I better drink some more coffee here for a second.
Sip some solutions, my friends. This is a special brew right here.
That's right. I got me some of that solution stuff actually upstairs. That's insane.
You do some good stuff.
I need to start. I don't know, brew some of that today so I can get into the mindset. You know?
Get that caffeinated culture mindset going. Let's go.
Hey, look, man. Thanks for taking the time to do this podcast. This is going to be a lot of fun. We got a chance to jam a little bit before we started recording. This is the Business of Parenting podcast. By no means are we experts. I'm definitely not an expert. I think you got a bit more experience than I do. My oldest is 11. Your oldest is how old again?
18.
That's right.
18,
18, man. Jeez. I'm like the other day, I was like, mine's like 11 going on 18. You should have heard some of the stuff she was saying to me the other day. I was just like, the grinding of the teeth, just like,
oh man. Brother.
Yeah.
Just to tell you this, 11 to 18 is going to go like this. 11 to 18 is that.
You know what? Is it really bad to say that sometimes I'm kind of okay with that? And then I'm sure I'm just like,
I know what you mean.
Is this recording? That. Oh, no. Maybe that's a bad thing. But
hey, we all love our kids, but we do sometimes have our patience can wear thin. That's part of the BOP situation here.
That's the BOP situation. That is it. Hey, man, to kick off our podcast, I love always doing origin stories. So, if you can tell us a little bit, about yourself and the family, and then we'll just kind of kick off our topics today.
The most important thing is that I am a father. I think that's probably the best title that I have. I think, we're going to be talking about it later, but fatherhood is a privilege. It's an honor. A lot of us, we make kids, but that doesn't mean we become fathers. So how do we do the fatherhood? How do we become fathers? That's important. That's something that's core inside me, even inside my business. I take that into automotive, right? As a sales leader, as a sales trainer, as a manager, or whatever you want to call it at a dealership, I've done a lot of things, and it sometimes feels like I'm doing fatherhood at a store, right? Yeah. But I use a lot of the principles that I've used as a parent, and I try to take that over into the business world because there's a lot of love involved. And I think the thing that's missing a lot in business is that we don't let our love shine through with our staff. So it all works hand in hand together. So I've been doing this for 20 years in automotive. I've been a parent now for 18 years, 18-year-old son, getting ready to turn 19, just graduated high school, going to college here in the fall. Super proud, but that's not the end of parenthood right there. I promise there's tons more, but I definitely am excited about the next chapter. So I'm blessed to be here, Jason. I appreciate you. And I look forward to having the show with you.
Dude, we have some cool topics, right? And I was looking at some of the topics you sent over, and you sent over the topic of marriage, and which I think is cool because I think this is we're almost at 30 episodes, and no one's actually ever brought up quite this topic, which when I think of the topic of marriage and parenting, it's an interesting one, right? Because they're two very different relationships, right? Like there's the relationship I have with my wife. And then there's the relationship I have with my kids. And, sometimes it's a balancing act, all right? Sometimes definitely one takes over more than the other, as far as sometimes priorities go, But I think what comes from a strong marriage is a true partnership in that business that is parenting. But look, that's tough, Like I'm just trying to think, like I've operated a few businesses so far with a partner. And that's not always an easy thing to do. Partners, we have different thoughts, we have different opinions, we have different ideas of what growth and what success looks like. So let's kick this off. Love to kind of get your thought on how that relationship that is marriage, all right, supports that business of parenting?
You know, I love that's a great question. This is a great subject, my friends. And all you out there watching this, I know we talk about being a parent, but I believe it's like having a board of advisors when you're married, right?
Ooh,
you know,
yes.
When you have even grandparents involved, you know, it's important, but marriage is a big deal. That is the CEOs, right? We are the top two, the CEO, the CFOs, whatever, of our relationship, of our family. We're trying to take care of things. So we have to make decisions together. And much like you said, just like having a business partner, our minds are so different. A lot of times we may conflict in what we believe is the right course of action to take. And that happens in marriage. So inside marriage, it teaches us a lot. It gives us a lot of skills. I believe that translate into business, but into the real world, into a lot of things. Yes. Being a parent and being married at the same time is a blessing. I think a lot of us, there is a lot of those co-parenting where people are not married anymore, right? And that's difficult. I think that's actually way more difficult to parent kids, because now we're talking about no board of advisor. We're talking about two different companies putting advice into one child, right? And not really, in most cases, they kind of fight against each other quite a bit. While when we're in a marriage situation, which I've been married now, blessings, for almost 18 years. I've been with my wife for 20 plus years. And, you know, has it been easy? Oh, no. I always tell people we've put a lot of work in it. But one thing that we've always had through the whole 20 plus years is love, right? And I think that love has always been able to overcome a lot of the little things or big things that come along during marriages. I think every one of us who's been married longer than 2 years knows what I mean. That honeymoon stage disappears. What do we do from that point? Well, being parents is something that really helps out, I think, a lot with that relationship. It helps you learn how to coach together. It helps you have love in a different way, that you both have a mission, right? So having a mission together and sharing that with your child and helping them come up almost like they're going to be the next CEO of the company, right? You're showing them the way of the warrior, right? The way of the parenting, and they eventually will take pieces of that and use it. I know I took things that my parents did. I took a lot of stuff my parents did and threw it out the window, though, right? I was like, nope, not doing that. I don't want to ever do that. And what's so funny is that you find yourself still doing some of those things, and you can't help it, right? The sayings that they said, the things that they did. You know, it's part of our upbringing, and that's part of our training, so to speak, right? And with a parent, somebody in the marriage situation where we have a wife or a husband, it's so much easier to be able to make those decisions, because you can sit there and say, hey, here's my idea. What do you think about it? They could veto it. They could say, no, I think that's a great idea. They could add on to it. So it's a board of advisors when you're married. It's a way to be able to really parent and look at it through different perspectives. And it's key. It's very key.
Look, I love the fact that you brought up, coach, right? And that is, I can see this a lot kind of sometimes in my marriage, and I see this a lot in other people's family structures as well, is that there usually are two coaches, and these coaches normally bring different talents or experience, right? Like, you look at a football team, there's not one coach, there's like seven. You got a kicking coach, and you got a running coach, and you got a defense and offense coach. And, these are all people that are kind of, let's call them experts in a specific area, and I find that that's important, when you have that partner in parenting, that you kind of both bring kind of a different element to it, like I'm definitely the coach of when people get hurt, like if there's blood anywhere, I am definitely the coach that gets thrown into the game. If there's blood, vomit, or poo anywhere, it's definitely me that's getting thrown into the game. If there's tears, all right, it's typically the other coach in this partnership, my wife, that's getting thrown kind of into that game. It's not that I can't handle tears. I just would, I'd be the first one to admit that I'm probably not the best equipped to handle tears, and which maybe comes from the industry that the two of us were kind of raised in, of this suck it up, buttercup, and check it out the door, and shut the hell up and get your job done. It's so but it's good to have kind of that balance. Now, I love the other thing you brought, and I want to dive deeper into this rabbit hole around mission and vision, because I know this is a big part of what you do from a training and coaching perspective, both professionally and within your own personal life. Is I don't think there's a lot of family units out there that have a clearly defined mission and vision statement. But you would never operate a business without a properly defined mission and vision statement, because then you don't have clear direction. So let's kind of go down that. What do you think is a good, mission is because we're setting out to do something. And
right.
You're very much so aware of what mission requirements are, right? And then the vision is kind of what we ultimately like to see happen. So what do you think is a good mission and vision statement?
Wow, that's a very, very, man, I have to tell you this, Jason, that's a great perspective and that's a great thought right there. A mission and vision statement. I think that we do that without even realizing we're doing that.
100%.
One is like my son going to college. What a mission that was. That's something we took over the last 4 years, making sure his grades were good, making sure he kept up with certain GPAs, make sure he took certain classes to get him to that next level. Right. And of course, also not just academic, but also what kind of activities is he doing during school? What kind of clubs is he involved with? Who are his friends, right? It's no different than like finding the right employees to be around. When you look at it in all business aspects, you want to make sure that not only is he the right hire, which I had no choice, right? That was my child. It was built that way. But at the same time, is he the right hire, and who are we hiring with him to enhance him, right? And it's not really hiring, it's what kind of friends is he around? Who is he being influenced by, right? I think that we obviously are the sum of the 5 people we surround ourselves with. So we also want to make sure that my son understands that. So the mission statement over the last 4 years was to, hey, we're going to get you a scholarship. We're going to get you to college, and you're going to start your next education going into adulthood. So how do we get him to do that and be excited about that? So we encouraged, just like we would do, we bonused him for good grades. We did so many things to be able to get that vision of what we believe he has the ability to do. Now, of course, just like in work, if we see that during those 4 years of him being in high school, that maybe college wasn't what was best for him, or maybe the college that we were thinking about wasn't the right one, or whatever his thoughts were and his class loads were. But at the same time, what you also find is that they could take on a lot more in some cases. Like my son was able to take on AP classes, do the calculus classes, do all these amazing things to help not only his GPA, but make his resume look really pretty for colleges. Right. So, that's kind of what we worked on. I don't know if that answers the question, but
it does. Because if you think about it, like a good mission or vision statement within a business is it's an ever evolving right statement. And to your point, but see, if it's not clearly defined, we can never be intentional about our efforts to actually get to and execute the mission and the vision. So like me, my vision, all right, for my kids, because they're still young, right? I have 7, 9, and 11. My vision is that they become productive young adults. Okay. Amen. And maybe that's because I've interviewed a lot of maybe not so productive young adults. And what's that Netflix series I saw just come out? What did they call it? Snowflakes. There we go. I think that's the new term, snowflakes. Maybe I've interviewed a few snowflakes in my life, and therefore my vision is that they don't become snowflakes, but they do become, they're still young. So, but then, so my mission, is that, I have so many years to kind of put them out to market, and the market's going to determine if they're a dick or not. And so like I have a mission to kind of do what I need to do to kind of develop out and coach and train, this person. I mean, look, I know this train of thought may not sound appropriate for, look, it's not the norm. Let's just say that it's not the norm for parenting standards.
What's the norm with you, Jason? Nothing. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, there we go. Right. Like but it's just, that's how my brain kind of is able to kind of process it so that I am intentional about my efforts. Now let's kind of move into our next topic, which was around fatherhood, which I think of fatherhood, and you're right, man. What a title, right? I mean, I still remember the day that Lily, my oldest, was born, and it was like, man, I had this moment where within probably the first, I would say 15 minutes that she was in our world, that the entire 27 years prior to that seemed like a distant memory. Like it was just like, yeah, that's not real anymore. Like This is what's real now, right? But to your point, you said it earlier, fatherhood is a title, but a title that has to be kind of earned and maintained.
Amen.
And, I think same thing in business. We have the title of leader.
Yes.
All right. But that is a title that it can be given to you, but to keep it, all right, you have to earn it and you have to work for it. So let's talk a little bit about, what are your kind of thoughts on, being busy business people like we are, but still trying to balance and maintain, all right, our opportunity to own and earn that fatherhood title.
Yeah. That's like anything else in life, like what we do with our business meetings, our appointments that we make, the Zoom meetings that we have, we don't miss those, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to do the same thing inside your personal fatherhood life. Is you have to set appointments for that. You have to make that such a priority, like it's a missed appointment, like it's another $1 million deal, right? And if you don't make that a priority, then what happens is they don't make a priority for you as time goes by. And I think that is something that as a father, especially as a father, and a working father, I should say, a business father who's the main source of income of the household and all those things. And I'm not saying that there's not women out there that don't do that, but we're talking about fatherhood right now. But as a father, a lot of times there's this thing called the absentee father, right? We've heard that. I kind of dealt with that a little bit myself growing up. Don't get me wrong. My father loved us. He's a different generation, but he was more of the kids are meant to be heard or seen, not heard, right type thing. So love my dad, love you, Pops. But at the same time, it was just a different type of fatherhood. I think that in today's world, it's a little bit more, need to be more interactive with your kids. You need to find more time. I think that we need to make it more purposeful. I think those are one of the things that I talked about earlier when I said that I learned from my parents that I don't want to do is I don't want to be that, hey, I don't want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear everything my son has to say. I want to hear where he wants to go, what his thoughts are and all those things. But I make a priority to have that time with my son. When I am gone during the week, when I get back that weekend, I want to at least spend some time, whether we're out shooting hoops together, whether we're having lunch together, whether we're just going for a walk, or we're just kicking it out in the back porch, just having a great conversation like I was yesterday. I mean, it's just something that I make a priority, and you have to do the same with you. As a business person, we know what appointments are and how important some of those appointments are. You have to make that the exact same way with your kids. So that is a really easy tip to be able to stay on top of it is put it in your planner. If you have a planner, put it in there, make it happen, and do not let it be anything else besides that. Even if it's a phone call, if you're gone for a couple of weeks, a phone call them once a day for 5 minutes. Hey, how you doing today? Just want to let you know I love you.
100%.
Right?
100%.
It's as simple as that.
Well, it's being a leader,
Yeah,
I think, and it's funny because listen to you, it's like, yes, if you were a part of this relationship that generated this child, all right, therefore you were given the title of father, but I don't necessarily think that's fair, right? Mm-hmm. I think the title of father should be something that's earned, similar to the title of leader, right? Just because you're the head of a business or a dealership, because that's where we work with so much, right? That doesn't necessarily make you a leader.
Nope.
All right. But there are clearly defined things that make a leader, and I think that there's a lot of correlation there to what makes a true father. When you think of a leadership role, all right, what are the 2 or 3 attributes you think someone needs to have, all right, to be a leader?
Wow. To be a leader is to be humble.
Yes.
I think that's a huge attribute.
Like
you have to understand that as a leader that you have to constantly grow, that you don't know everything, and that's okay. Right. So humble yourself a little bit and understand that there's always room for improvement, that there's always an opportunity to grow. The conversations you have with your children, the conversations you have with your staff, the conversations you have with other companies are opportunities for you to hear things and to take that perspective and to make a change, right? There's different levels of leadership, right? I do believe that there is the title, the initial title of manager, right? But once again, and I love what you said, is you can even own the store. It doesn't mean make you a leader. Exactly. That does not make you a leader. Nope. Now you have to earn the leadership. You have to earn the leadership through different levels of that, having people believe in you, what you have to say, knowing that you're competent, showing them that takes time. And that's the same thing that we do when we talk about our kids. So having humbleness and understanding that, hey, I could get better. Hey, I have different levels that I need to go, and I want to reach those top levels. But not only that, but I want to humble myself enough to know that I could bring other people who can possibly replace me, and that's okay, right? Just like our children, one day they're going to replace you and become parents themselves, and when they are, it's okay if they're better than you at being a parent, right? It's fantastic. Matter of fact, that's what we want.
Yes.
So humbleness is number one. I would say number two, if I was to pick another type of attribute that would be really great for leadership, not management, is empathy. You know, yes. You really have to be able to put your feet in someone else's shoes for a little while and understand where they're coming from and really feel how they feel. And a lot of times, if you don't know how to make that feeling happen, if you don't really understand it, you have to ask, why do you feel this way? And it's no different than the way we speak to our kids. Same thing when we speak to our employees, our team members, other leaders in the organization, is just ask them why, you know, and then that trickles down.
Yeah, you got to speak to them like humans. They're little people. They're humans, and just like everybody else.
Quit assuming, right? Because a lot of times what you think is the problem is not the problem, right? So just get some empathy inside you and learn and ask questions and really learn what they really feel. So those are two things that I think would work really well in leadership.
I mean, being humble, and we talked a little bit about that right before. It's like, you know, being humble to know that, you know, mom and dad's way of doing things wasn't necessarily, you know, there were pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
And I think when you kind of humble yourself, it's like, well, if dad did it that way, I'm going to do it that way. I didn't turn out that bad. But did you really? Did you really? And I'll be 100% honest with you. I do find myself sometimes saying stupid stuff like that. You know, like, you know, something will happen and I'm like, well, I didn't do that. You know,
I'm guilty of it too.
Right? You know, but I'm 100% with you, man. I mean, like, you know, similar to the title of manager, all right? Just because you're a manager doesn't make you a leader. I think just because you're a father doesn't make you a father, right? You have to work up to that title.
Amen.
Keeping this mindset of humbleness, knowing that you can learn from anybody and everybody, both what to do and sometimes what not to do, is incredibly this constant growth, right? Like, you know, this idea that, you know, just because you participate, there you go, just because you participated, all right, in the process of generating a kid doesn't necessarily mean that you were fully equipped, all right, to actually father, all right, this child. So being humble, and then empathy. I got to be honest with you, this is one of the places I think I probably struggle the most with. I know, right?
Not you, Jason.
I have a really hard time sometimes empathizing with my kids because just, you know, to us sometimes it's just so ridiculous. This person hit this person because that person stole that person's sucker, or, you know, just like you're just like, so trying to empathize sometimes with a kid's argument, and sometimes trying to empathize with kids' incredibly large emotions, right? Like,
yes,
you know, like, yes. I went to the freezer and there are no more grape freezies. Holy crap. The world is about to end, and I'm going to let you know that I feel like the world is going to end. So, you know, that's tough for me. I really struggle with this place, but I know
I'm
how
the complete opposite. I completely understand that. I want my grape icy right now. I understand that. I empathize 100% with that one. I throw a fit.
But it's true though, because we're supposed to treat them as people, and then I'm trying to empathize with these really large emotion because there's no grape freezies in the freezer, all right, and there's a very large emotion right now around just anger and disappointment, and I'm just like, it's an effing freezy, like, and so I'm trying to empathize with that, but no, I'm with you though. That's I'm never going to execute it, you know, 100% every single time, but you know, I love what you said. It's like, if I keep myself a mindset around just trying, it's not going to work every time. I love the fact that you can empathize that there's no grape freezies. I can't, but I love that you can. That's amazing.
Well, throw something when there's no grape freezies left. I'm gonna throw something.
I'm gonna get mad, like, you know. And I might be the same way if I go and, you know, and find out that I have no bourbon left. You know, I might have some big emotions about that. We'll see.
I would too.
But look, I think this is a good transition kind of into our next topic, because we've been talking a bit about work, and we've been talking a little bit about, you know, just general life and everything. And it's just, you know, I love this topic of balance, right? Because I really do, because I just think there's a lot of misconception around the term work-life balance. It's like everything has to be balanced all the time. Like, well, if you're working 40 hours on your job, then you should be working 40 hours a week on your family. And it's like, but I don't know. Maybe that is the way to do it. I don't know. Like, but I'd love to kind of get your thoughts, man. How do you define work-life balance?
I define work-life balance as a like intentional time.
Okay.
What I mean by that is like I love what you said there. It's a great point. If I work 40 plus hours a week, am I supposed to do 40 plus hours a week at home and loving on them? And, I'm going to tell you something, your family doesn't even want that. But what I'm going to tell you is that there is a such thing as affection, and there's a such thing as letting them know intentionally on a daily, right? I talked about scheduling time for people on a daily, and it's something that you have to be able to do. What I mean by that also, and a little bit deeper, is that we don't feel balanced in life unless we're giving everything a little bit of attention. So how I define my balance isn't by time. I define my balance by how I rate my experience with that. For example, I'm going to rate everything from a scale of 1 to 10, right? And 10 being that I'm doing it perfectly, 1 being that I'm doing it like crap, right? And 10 really, no one ever really hits a 10. There's no such thing as perfect. Just like you said ago, you could do all these things, but all you could do is do your best. I'm going to try to make sure that my family knows that I'm there for them, but I can't always guarantee that's going to happen because I'm not perfect. None of us are. Neither is work, neither is schedule, neither is the world, right? So we have to understand that that's okay if we're not perfect, for one. It's okay, but be intentional and then find that time. And now it's not about, like you said, not about the 40 hours, but it's about when you do have that time. Is it real time, or is it just me kind of looking at my phone while my wife's talking? Is it me just looking, reading a book while my son's having a conversation, or are we just sitting at a dinner table, not even having conversation? So figuring out how that feels. I can tell you the easiest way to find out is have a conversation with your kid, have a conversation with your family and say, hey, how do you feel about the time I spend with you? And what do you think would be more effective for you? What do you feel would be a way to help you feel like that I'm actually spending time with you? Keeping in mind, and one thing about our kids, and I think they're great, and I believe your kids are probably the same way. I think most car kids are, who are in this industry, they understand that we have to work. They understand that the shoes that they're wearing on their feet, them J's or whatever that they have, is a product of that. The house that we live in is a product of that. So the work, and my son's over here actually right now, just going like this.
He's shaking his head, yeah.
So, but it's truth though. But at the same time, understanding that when I do have free time and you want it, it's yours. Right.
Yes.
When I'm on a weekend, when it's a Sunday, morning and we're doing something, if you want to go jam out and go for a bike ride, if you want, it's yours. It's your time. I got it for you. Right. They know that I'm going to schedule this time for them. So they're going to use it creatively too. Matter of fact, a lot of times because they know I'm being intentional, they find things that are even cooler than I thought of.
Yes.
So they know, they expect it. So it's just like anything else. I have an appointment. They know it. They know it's a priority to me, just like the priority that they see when I have a business partner call in and say, oh, I got to go. I got to make this phone call real quick. It's the same thing with them. Hey, I got to go. I got my son. I got to deal with him in 5 minutes. I have an appointment with him. That's huge. So be intentional. Be intentional.
I love the fact that you bring up the appointment thing, because that is something that I started doing a while back, and I think it's become a great thing. Is that I hold regular scheduled appointments with the kids, and I also give them. I actually got crap for posting this, but that's okay. I don't mind. I actually give kids. I give my kids access to my calendar, and I let them schedule their own appointments.
I love that. That's even better than I do. I'm taking that from you right now. Seriously, I'm still in that.
There was a couple things that was, it was actually just kind of a funny thing I fell into, because all of my kids' stuff is on G Suite. So everything's on Google. So I was getting all these notifications, and somehow I accidentally synced Lily's school calendar to my calendar, and I started getting notifications of when she has tests and homework and stuff. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. Because then I have something to kind of talk to her with. I got a notification that you have your history test tomorrow. Yep. Are we ready for that? Can we chat about it a little bit? So I thought this was actually kind of neat. And then I said, well, I wonder if I can reverse it and send it back. Mm-hmm. And I went into some of the settings and found out absolutely I could. Now she gets notifications when I have meetings. So she knew I was meeting with you this morning, Fred. She actually said it. She had said it last night. She goes, you have your podcast tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. with Fred. to think.
I love that.
You know, so she's like, and she might ask about it later. We'll see, but that's cool. But what that is just intentionality, and that's what you were talking about. Like, I think the whole kind of work-life balance thing is just intentional. You know, and I think what the byproduct of intentionality is something called deep work. Now, that's actually there's a book called Deep Work. It's by Cal Newport, I believe. All right. And it talks, the whole premise is not a quantity as much it is compressed quality. And, you know, and he found that some of the most successful people in the world, all right, were able to, you know, be very, very intentional with this method of deep work. That, you know, it's because, you know, like, I mean, I see this happen all the time, you know, it's almost, you kind of become like the paper shuffler parent, you know, where it's just like, you just kind of do enough to make it look like you're doing something.
There's a lot of parents out there like that. I see it every day.
You know, it's just like, yeah, okay, I'm going to take you to the park, but then I'm going to sit on my phone for the next 45 minutes while you're at the park. You know, so just enough to, you know what I mean? But I'm with you, man. I think work-life balance is being intentional. Definitely, if anybody out there watching, listening, check out this book, Deep Work by Cal Newport. It goes a lot into that. Now, my friends. Yeah, or Audible. It's a great Audible, by the way. I'll be the first one to admit, man, I don't read. Like just everything I do.
You don't read, but I know you educate. There's no doubt. You definitely if you're not reading, you're listening. Right?
We talked about it earlier. We talked about the key to being fatherhood, you know, is constant growth. Look, I know we're getting towards the tail end of our conversation today. But before I let you go, if you had any advice that, you know, you've learned from the 18 years of developing out your son, and if any advice you'd want to share with, you know, other parents out there, what would that advice be?
Wow, that's a great, quick question. You know, I would say love, man. And, you know, it all starts with that one word, that 4-letter word, love. Really care, and let them know you care. Ask questions, learn about them. You know, no different than we do with our business clients, no different than we do with our best friends. These kids will become your best friends one day. These children will become humans that are productive in the world, much like Jason talked about. That's what he wants his kids to do, is to one day go out and be productive people in this world. And when they are productive people, they're going to bring so much value, and you're going to be there, you know, cheering them on. But the thing is if you want that to last forever, if you want them to be the type of kids that come back and still ask for that advice from their board of advisors, their parents, then you have to love them, truly love them. And I'm not talking about, like Jason said earlier, going to the park and looking on your phone while you're at the park the whole time while they're playing. Get involved, love them, love them. Everything that you wanted as a kid, the way that you wanted your parents to treat you, do the same, right? And then just keep loving. And it's okay to make mistakes. Don't worry about mistakes. Let it go. We all make them. Every single person, every parent, does not matter, from the beginning of time till now, has made mistakes. The question is did you do it with love, or did you do it out of hate? If you did it with love, the mistakes were okay. So keep loving, my friends. Keep loving.
Dude, well said. Well said. Thanks, Fred. Hey, man, thank you so much for just being open, you know, and just real. You know, I think that's the fun part of kind of doing this podcast, is that, you know, we're being a little vulnerable, you know, but it's a real conversation. I can't tell you how much I really appreciate you jamming with me today. For everybody out there that's watching and listening right now and love to maybe connect with you and follow along with your journey, what's the best way to do so?
There's 2 ways. I would say either email me at fred@carguycoffee.com, or you could just call 321-FRED-LOU, FREDLOU. 321-FRED-LOU. Very simple. And I want to thank you really quick, Jason, for putting on a show like this, man. This is great. You know, we're both automotive guys, but this is beyond automotive. This is about talking about the business of parenthood. And it is the biggest business in the world, man. This is what creates future Elon Musk, future Jeff Bezos, future, you know, Jason Harris's and Fred Lennartz's, is by being a great parent and really taking it like a business, but doing it right and loving, man. So I appreciate you for having the show.
Thanks, Fred. Hey, you have yourself an amazing day. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you too, brother.
Thanks for tuning in to the Business of Parenting podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to check out the full podcast library at strategywithjason.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.